With so many big games coming out, it can be easy to let a real gem fall through the cracks, and in case you haven't played Expeditions Rome yet, I'm here to tell you that I reckon you'll want to change that. Expeditions Rome is the third game in the Expedition series, its predecessors being Expeditions Conquistador and Expeditions Viking. But even if this is your first entry into the series, you're in for a real treat. Logic artists and THQ Nordic have crafted Expeditions Rome into a really enjoyable blend of not only the previous two games in the series, but also one that incorporates the best elements of RPGs, strategy games, narrative adventures, and party-style turn-based combat outings. The result is a delightfully unique gameplay experience that, if you're anything like me, isn't quite like anything else you've ever played. There are a lot of things to love here, but if you're still on the fence, let me take you through a few of my favorites. We'll start where this game and many great RPGs do, and that's with creating and customizing your protagonist. You'll end up tailoring the equipment and skill trees of dozens of different characters in this game, but your hero is the only one you'll craft from scratch. Your first choice is whether to play as a male or female Roman legatus, and if you're wondering whether playing a female military leader in Roman society comes with naysayers to contend with, it absolutely does. In what is an interesting outlier in the gaming space, there are a bunch of different conversations throughout the game that are just to do with the fact that you've decided to play as a female, if you've chosen to do so. It's an unusual move, but one that speaks to Logic artists' interest in and dedication to really emulating Roman society, culture, and warfare within the game. Whether it's a question of Roman laws, familiar historical figures like Cleopatra, battle stratagems, infrastructure, or social political systems, great pains have been taken to simulate what the ancient Roman Empire would have looked and been like in every possible aspect. And sometimes that means explaining to a room full of disapproving senators that you did a bang-up job leading the legion, even though you're not a man. As for your class that you'll be choosing for your hero at the beginning, your options are also pretty close to what would have been available during the Roman era. The four classes at your disposal encompass heavy infantry, archery, light infantry, and support infantry, respectively. Each of these have three further subclasses, so it's satisfyingly granular to design your legate's playstyle. Even if you end up with multiple characters sharing a class, they may play very differently depending on how you spec them out. It's worth noting you can also spec into skills from other sub-branches in your class, so you aren't tied to a single subclass branch. As I said, this granularity is important because not only will you be kitting and speccing out your hero and their few companions, you'll also need to do that for a second string of Praetorians and Centurions, who will share duties in joining your party and commanding your legion. If you're doing the maths at home, that is a lot of characters and a lot of moving parts, but that's what makes this such a satisfying strategy game. Beyond considering the gear and skill set of your characters, you'll need to learn about how they best collaborate in turn-based engagements. Even back in camp, there's much to learn, such as the intricacies of building structures like a bath that can boost Legion morale if you have a character with that perk assigned to it, or building a workshop to deliver new stratagems for your critical Legion combats. That said, these elements are balanced with aspects that will be pleasingly familiar to fans of turn-based strategy games, like performing buff actions in combat, getting an attack bonus for shooting an arrow from high ground, and pulling off attacks of opportunity. There's a clever balance struck here where you'll find there's plenty of things that keep Rome feeling unique with a lot left to master, but still those familiar aspects that RPG and strategy fans love to see. At its basic level, each combat encounter prompts you to create a party out of your available soldiers and attempt to complete your win conditions, preferably without letting any of your guys get incapacitated or killed along the way. Each turn, every soldier will get a chance to move and attack or use any other ability by spending an action point. Combat gets gradually more complicated as you play, but there is a generous learning curve that lets you figure things out as you go before punishing you for things like not ensuring your party is equipped with tactical items like bandages. Every combat scenario plays out like a puzzle, as the best turn-based strategy games should, where the landscape of the battlefield must be factored in and tactically maneuvered around to ensure you have the right soldiers at the right place at the right time, and with enough action points to spare to get the job done. The feeling of getting further into the game and going from being overwhelmed by the mechanics at play to proving mastery over those elements is immensely satisfying. Not to mention cleaning up a battlefield by looting every body and chest in sight before taking off to your next heading. A little aside here from me personally, because this game also has a mechanic where you can loot multiple corpses nearby each other without having to go to every single one. As someone who cannot walk away from loot in any situation, I just really appreciate that. Between battles, you'll experience the overarching story of your protagonist, their family tragedy, rise to the role of legate, and the many twists and turns that crop up along the way. 30 odd hours in, I'm genuinely really fond of my companions, and even my hired crop of additional fighters thanks to the emergent gameplay moments that occur during combat encounters. Much of the investment I've developed in the main narrative is due to the fully voiced story, which absolutely pulls you into the main campaign riddled with political intrigue and endears you to your companions. The other component that definitely keeps things tense between your life and death combat encounters is the fact that you're required to make decisions and endure their consequences. You'll have plenty of opportunities to make some very big calls in Expeditions Rome, many of which will change the trajectory of your mission and your relationships with those around you. Almost everything you do and the way you choose to conduct yourself will result in Praetorians of various dispositions approving or disapproving of you depending on their own personalities. Choosing between the good of Rome or the interests of your protagonist and their friends is especially difficult, as the stakes are high either way. You're ultimately seeking to unravel a plot that results in the death of your father, which is a priority to you just as much as the future of Rome is. So to say it's a tricky one is a wild understatement. Expeditions Rome has you venturing through a gorgeous open world, exploring across familiar continents and meeting recognizable figures from history. And honestly, it's just a blast to get lost in. Though you're encouraged to take your time doing things like picking up chests in the overworld, deploying your legion to occupy local outposts or procure resources, and making choices in choose-your-own-adventure-esque random encounters that crop up as you traverse the continent, there is a strong narrative through line that's ever present. This isn't the sort of strategy game where you run off anywhere and gradually improve your forces until you take over the known world and it's game over. The story of your protagonist, their family, and their role as a legate carries you through regions including Greece, Gaul, Rome itself, and North Africa, leading you ever forward as the narrative plays out. Just how it ends up playing out is up to you, but with so many interesting systems at play, a gorgeous world to explore, and an engrossing story backed by a rich historical setting, I'm betting you'll have a good time doing it. Let me know down in that comment section if you've checked this one out yet, and be sure to subscribe to THQ Nordic on YouTube for all the updates on the games you're gonna want to know about. I've been Jess, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll hope to see you again soon.